Okay, I will come you back to the continuation or part 2 on reactivity series. So this is of course what we looked at as the definition. We said reactivity series, this is basically the list of metals arranged in order of their ability to displace their metals or other metals from their compound. We also mentioned the fact that these metals, okay, are arranged from the most reactive to the least reactive metal. So now straight away let's look at this reactivity series. So what we have here is the reactivity series. So according to this arrow, we can see that the reactivity is decreasing from the most reactive, which is in this context potassium is the most reactive, dropping all the way to gold as the least reactive. So down this series you expect the reactivity to be decreasing. If you go up this, you expect the reactivity to be increasing. So the reactivity increases up the group and it is decreasing down the group. So now as we can see, we have potassium as the first one, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, tin, lead, and we also have hydrogen, which is basically used for comparison. So this here, it is only used for comparison. And then we also have copper, mercury, as well as silver in that manner. Now we need to understand how these elements or how these metals react with how they react. So how these metals react with one, we need to consider how they react with steam or cold water, okay, how they also react with acid, and basically finally how they react with the oxygen. So these are the three reactions that we are going to consider in understanding these basically metals. So now let's start with reactions of metals with steam or water. So what you should understand is that starting from potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, these four, okay, so we have okay, let me use red. Okay, so we have potassium, sodium, calcium, and magnesium. So now these potassium, sodium, calcium, and magnesium can react with the water. Okay, they can react with the water to give a salt, rather to produce a hydroxide and hydrogen gas. So those four, so we are saying potassium, sodium, calcium, as well as magnesium. So these, they react with they react with water. Okay, they react with water to form a hydroxide, or rather, let's just say an alkali plus hydrogen gas. So you expect these to react with water and form an alkali and what? A hydrogen gas. So what do you mean? Let's pick, suppose you pick potassium. So when potassium, or let me just pick sodium plus water, you expect to produce sodium hydroxide, of course aqueous, plus what? Hydrogen gas. So now this is the common reaction that we are going to expect between potassium, sodium, calcium, as well as magnesium. So these, they react with water to form an alkali and the hydrogen gas. Now the way they react reduces down the group, down the series. So the first one, it is very violent, so its reaction is very violent, less violent. So even this one, it is very violent, less, and the magnesium at least is not that violent when it is reacting with what? Water. So these four, they react with water to form. And then we have aluminium, zinc, and iron. So these three, okay, so let's have number 2. So apart from the potassium reacting with water, now this other one, which is aluminium, zinc, iron, so these react with they react with steam. So these do not react with cold water. Okay, they react with steam to form these. They react with steam to form an oxide. So these, they produce an oxide. They produce an oxide and the hydrogen gas. So I'm saying if you get aluminium, so e.g. let's pick aluminium. So aluminium plus water, remember steam, it is still water. So this aluminium plus water, so what you expect to produce is an oxide, which is aluminium oxide plus hydrogen gas. If you get zinc, you are going to produce zinc oxide plus hydrogen gas, iron oxide plus hydrogen gas. Now all these below, coming down, these below hydrogen, these do not react with water. So you should take note that metals below hydrogen do not react with water. Right? So these do not react with water. So this is one of the important reaction, the reaction of these metals with what? Acids. So the only first ones, they react to produce alkalis, and then followed by aluminium, zinc, and iron. These, they produce oxides, and the other one do not react with water at all. So all those below hydrogen do not react with the water. All right. Are you following? Yes, we are. Now, let's look at the other reaction. So the reaction. Now let's see how these react with what? Reaction with. Let's see how they react with the acids. How they react with the acid. Okay, so now let's see in the context of the reactivity series. Remember, we can only judge this based on three things. So we can have the reaction of these metals with acids. We can also talk about the reaction of these metals with the water. We can also talk about the reaction of these metals with the oxygen. So now we are on oxygen part. So on the hydrogen part. So all metals above hydrogen, the reactivity series react with dilute hydrochloric acid to form salt and the water. So now all these elements above hydrogen, okay, we're talking about potassium, sodium, calcium. All these, they react with the hydrochloric acid to form salt and the water. So let's take that statement. All metals above hydrogen reacts with dilute HCl to form salt and the water. So that's what you're saying. Now all those elements below hydrogen, so we are talking about these elements below hydrogen, these do not react with the water at all. Is that okay? So these do not react with the water at all. Now, one thing that we should take note is that if you get this potassium, which is quite the most reactive metal, the way it will react with acid will differ with the way the sodium will react with the same acid, the way calcium will react with the same acid, and the way magnesium will react with the same acid. So the reaction of the first two, these potassium and magnesium react with acid very, let me not even use vigorously, but explosive. The reaction of potassium and sodium with a dilute hydrochloric acid is very explosive. So if we get sodium plus HCl, what we expect to produce is sodium chloride, of course, which is the salt, plus hydrogen gas. So now this reaction, we are saying this reaction is explosive. You understand? So the first two, potassium and sodium, their reaction with acid is very explosive. Now if you get